My 38 female, daughter 21, is suffering from kidney failure. We've been estranged for 3 years, and it was due mainly to the fact that she was taking her health issues, as well as her fights with her dad, 38, and stepmom, 31, out on me. I spent hundreds of my husband's, Ethan, 49, and my money on therapy for my daughter, but she's remained bitter and difficult. Ethan and I have 2 kids, tween boys. I had to give up quite a bit in terms of career prospects due to my first pregnancy. My parents also disowned me. Then Ethan helped me get a degree in accounting and a real estate license. Now I'm working 50-hour weeks, but I love it because I'm finally earning 6 figures, and Ethan's business is also at a place where he can work at home. My daughter at this point was mostly low contact since she turned 18, but now she's back because she needs a kidney. I made the mistake of letting friends know about her situation, and everybody I know from my mommy groups from when my daughter was born started dogpiling on me, saying, "You've got to do this, mama," and like I'd be held down to get my kidney. Because of this pressure, I went to the doctor despite Ethan saying no and found out I was a match. I tried to reach out to my daughter's dad to see if he was a match, but her stepmom had already called her, screaming that her dad was the provider for her and 3 kids. So how dare she ask this of a father? My ex said that his duty was obviously to his wife and minor kids, so there was no testing for him. And so he and everybody else wanted it to be my kidney. I tried to communicate to my daughter that I was afraid of surgery. I was too new to take that much time from work, so I'd likely be working while in pain. She replied, asking, "Doesn't Ethan make a lot of money?" I told her again how risky the surgery was, and she said, echoing my friends, "I don't care, this isn't about you." I was so furious from that conversation that when I went to see the doctor, and the doctor asked if somebody was coercing me, I told him that at this point, I'd rather die than continue to serve my ungrateful, rude daughter. I said I indeed felt coerced, and if I did it, I'd probably have burning resentment towards the recipient and the doctors if I woke up in pain. The doctor immediately said I'm therefore not a compatible donor and that I should never feel like I'm a prisoner. I told my friends and Ethan this, and while Ethan just asked if I was okay and that the boys and he needed me, my friends were furious and tried to shame me online with "what kind of mother" post. They insist I go back and say I was lying, and I've changed my mind, to sign something showing I wasn't coerced and get it notarized if that's what it takes. Am I the idiot? Holy cow, the fact that her dad won't even get tested is crazy. Imagine your parents arguing over who does not want to save your life. They're just reaffirming her decisions to go low contact. Lord, I wonder which parent will pay for the daughter's funeral, since she won't be getting a kidney. Or will they argue about that too? Does everyone else also realize that OP blames her daughter for being disowned by her parents because OP had a kid at 17? I can't believe what I'm reading. That's just unreal to me. You are the idiot. It's cute you think they'll pay for her funeral because she's already spent hundreds of her and her much older husband's money on her daughter's therapy. Come on. Who the heck makes $100K plus solo, and a husband probably makes more, and then complains about spending less than $1,000 on therapy for their kid? Someone whose kid went low contact for good reason. Anyone who uses paying for their child's medical bills, especially an insignificant sum, as a reason to guilt or neglect or abuse that child is a bad person. Full stop. However, the only reason OP is the idiot is because she can't keep her mouth shut. Lady, you shouldn't have shared that medical information with your circle. It's your decision, and you didn't need to let anyone know that the lack of donor compatibility was due to your unwillingness. That's also no one else's business. The doctors will tell everyone you're not compatible if you're unwilling. It's a shame you told anyone that you were. Well, she had her kid when she was 17, so she's probably stuck in that emotional level where you need to share everything publicly with everyone. I feel so sad for this daughter. Both of her terrible parents have written her off. OP had no contact with her the moment she was legally considered an adult, and she struggled with her health for years. Of course she's going to be bitter and disappointed. No one has ever supported her. No one owes anyone an organ, but even ignoring that, OP is insufferable. I'm a 36-year-old woman with a husband, Tom, and 3 children, Diana, tween, Mary, pre-tween, and William, kindergartner. Since my youngest was born, I haven't had any time away to myself. I haven't had one night out, a girls' trip, or even just an afternoon to watch a movie and drink some wine. Before anyone comments, I don't want to do these things all the time. I know I have a responsibility to my kids. I just think it would be nice to take a break a few times a year, maybe. Because of this, one of my friends, Penny, asked me to come away on a girls' trip with our college friends to the beach for 7 days. Obviously, I was skeptical since I didn't want to leave my kids alone, and I also don't want to force Tom to do everything himself for that long, but she eventually persuaded me. I asked Tom about this, and he said I should go. He would handle everything around the house. He didn't seem worried, so eventually my worries faded too. I got very into the idea of a stress-free trip, so before I left, I told him only to call me for emergencies. He agreed, but once I left and I was having a good time with my girls, Tom began calling me at least 7 to 8 times a day with the littlest things. Things like, "Oh, Diana can't find her hairbrush. Where is it?" Or, "Oh, where's the salt and pepper?" Or, "What's the name of William's kindergarten teacher again?" This went on for 3 days. I kept reminding him he agreed to only call for emergencies, but he always brushed it off. Eventually, I got sick of his calls because Tom promised me a stress-free trip, so I just turned off my phone. But on the 5th day, Penny approached me and said Tom called her and said I needed to come home immediately. Apparently, Mary was riding her bike and hit a rock and went flying off, and she broke her arm in several places. Of course, I cut the trip short and came right back home. But when I got home, Tom was very cold and rude. I thought it was just because of the stress of Mary's injury, but it kept going on for days. Eventually, I asked him straight out, what was wrong? And he blew up at me. He said that I abandoned our kids by refusing to answer my phone, and I broke my promise by not immediately responding when it was an emergency. He said I don't get to stop being a mother just because of a dumb vacation. I tried to defend myself and said he kept calling me over the teeniest inconveniences and interrupting the trip. Besides, he said he had everything handled. Tom responded that it could have been an emergency every time he called, so it's my job to pick up. But I said this was exactly like the boy who cried wolf, and he said that was ridiculous. My friends are all on my side, but Tom is still not really speaking to me. So I'd just like other opinions on if I was wrong here. Not the idiot. You were supposed to get some rest. It's his fault if you didn't pick up because he was annoying you every day. Like, doesn't he live with you? Like, he should know where the salt and pepper are. I saw that story many, many times. The husband says he can handle and babysit while he just takes care of their kids, but doesn't really know how to take care of his own kids. Anyway, don't blame yourself. You did the right thing. It's weaponized incompetence. Also, it's not like OP was impossible to get in touch with or had everyone on the trip turn off their phones. She was immediately accessible through her friend. Couldn't he have texted her? "Hey, Mary had an accident and broke her arm. Call me ASAP." I feel like Tom was being very passive-aggressive. "Sure, honey, go on this trip because you deserve it. But now I'm going to bother you multiple times a day so you can't enjoy yourself." Your husband is the boy who cried wolf. Ideally, you'd have explicitly told him, "I'm turning my phone off. If it's an actual emergency, contact Penny." But to me, that's the only thing you did wrong. I'm assuming your husband is upset because this week showed him how much he can't do what you do in the family. He's probably been gone for a few days here and there, but it's never impacted the family before, while you couldn't be gone 24 hours without him having to ask you questions. The alternative is that he kept calling, not because he was incapable of parenting on his own, but because he didn't trust you away from him. My wife quit teaching around 4 years ago for mental health reasons. My wife has shown no real desire to get back into the workforce. It's not like we're struggling per se, but I would be lying if I said I didn't miss the extra income from when my wife was working. About a year into her leave, her sister became pregnant, taking up much of her free time. So, over the last 2 years, my wife has been babysitting her niece for around 12 hours a day, 3 days a week. She's stressed but does it because her sister claims she has no other option and cannot afford childcare. Even so, I do not think it's reasonable for my wife to do 12 hours a day for 3 days. I told my sister-in-law that come next year, she needs to go to daycare because I'm not going to let my wife do what amounts to slave labor. My wife has not said anything for 2 years. My sister-in-law told me it wasn't my place to say what my wife could and could not do. I get this point of view, and I'd be lying if I said I'm not slightly miffed that my wife can work 36 hours a week, 3 days a week for free, but claims she's not ready to return to the workforce. That's a separate issue. The core issue here is my sister-in-law is taking advantage of my wife to provide free childcare. That's not okay. In the past, my wife talked about pay, but she doesn't like to chase people for money, so she never reminds them that they claim to always forget. Either way, I told my sister-in-law, this is where we stand. My wife is upset with me since she claims it's not my place to say what she can and can't do, and it's not my place to tell others how she's feeling. So, am I the idiot? For clarity's sake, I did this talk over with my wife many times. She's burnt out from watching her niece, but in her view, her sister has no other option. She's expressed how babysitting over these years, combined with teaching, has killed all desire she once had for having children of her own. She also fears her sister will become unstable if she loses her family's support. I stepped in because I was sick of her being taken advantage of. I didn't just sidestep her. I've tried many times over these years to put her foot down, but she loves her niece and doesn't want to see her suffer. My point is she's destroying her mental health, just like teaching. I was the one who encouraged her to quit because it was destroying her. All she did was wake up, go to work, come home, and go to sleep. It was a struggle to get her to eat sometimes. The same is happening with babysitting for my wife. My wife is not doing this alone. When I get home, I take over the last 3 hours and I drop the kid off at her mother's when she gets off work. We also provide food and child supplies, such as diapers and pull-ups. My wife is also potty training my niece. She's more or less raising her niece 3 days out of the week. Everyone's the idiot here. Your wife is actively screwing you over. She's happy to help her sister for free, but won't contribute to your nuclear family. She thinks she can just rely on you to take care of her, while she contributes nothing to your relationship. You should be upset with her, not sister-in-law. You're only the idiot for going over your wife's head to her sister. Her sister sucks because she's taking advantage of your wife and doesn't give a crap. Also, your wife is the spitting image of one of my family members, and I suggest you reconsider your marriage. Your wife is sick and doesn't want to help herself or better herself. She's creating these issues on purpose. She likes being the victim and doing the poor me, I'm so stressed out and burned out bit. She doesn't want you to step in or change the situation because you'd be taking her ability to victimize herself away. She's sick. She won't get better. She won't seek help. She wants to be like this. Oh boy. And then the sister-in-law will announce that she's pregnant and wants the wife to become a free slave for the rest of her life. She can't afford babysitting, but can afford to bring another child to this world. Sit down and look at the numbers. Just how much is a daycare for 36 hours a week? Your wife is working a full-time job for free, willingly. The average hourly in the U.S. is $16 an hour, ridiculously low, by the way. That's $2,300 a month. Maybe that will jar her enough to make a different decision. Perhaps you can't tell your wife what she can and can't do, but you can absolutely refuse to fund all of this BS. Your sister-in-law's child shouldn't be costing you time and money. It also shouldn't be costing you having a child of your own. I, nearly adult male, am the kid of divorced parents. I live with my mom, her husband Steve, and their daughter Molly, kindergartner. My dad lives halfway across the country and is in no financial position to look after a kid, so my mom has full custody. Despite that, my dad and I are really close. We have daily video calls and send each other cards and presents on holidays and birthdays, and if it was feasible, I would rather live with him. That is all to say, I don't need another father figure to take his place. Anyway, the other day, Molly referred to Steve as me and my name's daddy. I corrected her that he's her daddy, not mine. Molly looked dismayed, asked me what I meant, and said, "Does that mean you're not my brother?" I explained that I have a different dad and that her dad is my mom's husband, but that doesn't mean he's my dad. I reassured her that I'm still her brother and love her and yada yada. Steve shot me a death glare, and my mom just looked sad. Molly accepted my answer, and we continued with what we were doing. Later, my mom took me aside and told me that she was sad that I hadn't accepted Steve yet, and called me petty and cruel for pushing your issues on a little kid. She said that, like it or not, Steve is her husband, making him my father figure, and that I need to find room in your heart for the both of your dads. I told her that Steve is not and never will be my dad, and told her that just because you hated my real dad doesn't mean I have to throw him away as you did. I was worried I would lose my temper even more than I already had, and I left the situation to cool off. In the time since, Molly's been asking me constant questions about my dad and why my mom left him. She slept with her gym buddy, but I'm not going to tell Molly that until she's older. For now, the story is that my mom just fell out of love with my dad. Steve has been avoiding me like the plague and being passive-aggressive when we have to interact. And my mom has been bugging me to apologize to him. She's also been trying to find excuses for me to skip my video calls with my dad, but I will never do that. Still, I'm worried I may have opened a can of worms that I won't be able to close. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Your mom cheated on your dad, broke up their marriage, and expects you to treat her husband the same as your dad? She's the idiot here. Steve is an innocent victim, unless he is the aforementioned gym buddy she cheated with. Yikes. She's trying to force it too hard, which will never work. Kids are smarter than adults here. Give them credit for it. She wasn't too young to learn that you have different dads and will grow into someone who appreciates your willingness to be honest with her. I grew up as a child of divorced parents and was always quick to correct anyone who called my stepfather my dad. It's just what you do because you know your relationship with people. And how immature is her husband to be glaring at you or avoiding you? Your mom is being a massive idiot here, though. It's her job to stand by you on this, yet she's choosing to pretend her past didn't happen. Ugh! Good luck with her relationship with Molly when she figures out in the near future whatever else your mom is lying to her about. Steve was not the one she cheated with. That guy dumped her after 2 weeks when he realized he'd have to deal with me. LOL. Anyway, not to rant, but in short, I don't like Steve because he treats me like a little kid. Literally one time, he tried to make me go to bed at 7:30 because that was Molly's bedtime. He calls and or texts me every 30-ish minutes when I'm out of the house because apparently I could be kidnapped at any time. I am cordial and polite with him, nothing more, nothing less, and I plan to speak to him as few times as possible once I move out.